I hate to break it to you though, just because you're the first person to call that record doesn't mean you're going to be the first person to get the deal. I see it all the time where even a day before the auction, the homeowner signs a contract with someone that barely called them the day before the auction, right? So you might have spent the last 6 months marketing to this pre-foreclosure just for someone who called them a week before the auction closes the deal. There goes thousands of money down the drain, right? Reality is your time frame does not align with the homeowner's time frame.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Evergreen Marketing Podcast by Carrot.com, where we help investors like you build businesses of freedom and impact by helping you get more leads and close more deals. That's what we're talking about today. I'm your host, Brady, and I got my friend Burton from PropStream on the podcast. What's up, Burton?
What's going on, Brady? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on, man. I'm super excited. Today, we're going to be talking about how to use data in unconventional, creative ways. People talk about data all the time, but I figured why not get the guy who is like closer to the data more than anyone else we know, who's been at PropStream, who knows the ins and outs of what to look for. So yeah, we're going to talk about creative ways to use data and where to spend your marketing dollars and how to really think outside the box when it comes to lead gen and some of the big news that's been happening at PropStream. So it's going to be a good convo. Dude, first, tell me about the acquisition. You guys acquired Batch recently. You guys partnered up. What's going on?
Yeah, so we acquired actually part of Batch. We acquired Batch Leads and Batch Dialer. Okay. So after, obviously looking into the tech stack that they had over there, we made a decision as a company to acquire those two assets. And obviously the idea is to go through those tech stacks and especially when it comes to the Batch Leads, to take the best of the best from that application and bring it over to PropStream. And then clearly you guys can connect the dots with Batch Dialer, right? What we're trying to do with that in the future. The idea is to integrate these tech stacks into PropStream. For those that can't wait, I encourage you to take a look at those two products, especially Batch Dialer. Lots of new things that they've brought over the last few months into that product. And again, these are just the things that kind of made our decision a little bit more clearer to acquire that product.
That's awesome, man. That's super exciting for you guys. I'll be hoping that transition goes smoothly. I know that's a lot of big change over there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's been going great so far. Lots of new faces, lots of new technology. I think the integration is far better than we all expected it. I mean, when you hear acquisition, there's a lot of uncertainty, not just from the outside perspective, but even from an internal perspective. You're going to be integrating with new teams. How's that going to work? Is it oil and water, or is it going to be like, the best chicken soup you've ever made? So there is a lot of moving parts, but what I love about the acquisition is that it's been about nearly 60 days since the announcement. I think it was July 1st. And just seeing the passion of the two brands coming together, again, outside perspective, a lot of people thought, we were competitors. And in the world of, consumers, yes, we were two separate companies, essentially kind of overlapped in certain things. I can clearly see why people thought we were competition. But what I love the most is seeing that at the end of the day, we're all here to just help you guys, the real estate investors, because we know the impact that you make to the community, which is helping people, right? Buyers and sellers, and you hire contractors and plumbers and electricians. Like there's a huge impact. And it starts with that data. So to see two very passionate brands finally coming together to just make things better for you guys that are listening and your experience, man, I honestly, I've been with PropStream for about nearly 13 years. I literally, and I don't even, I'm not even joking, I can't wait to see, to show you guys what we're working on and what we're going to deliver to you guys in the very near future.
That's awesome, man. That's super exciting. That reminds me, I totally forgot to give everyone a tip that actually works. I already mentioned this on a podcast recently, but I'm going to mention it again because not enough people know about it. But you mentioned calling, Burton. We rolled out call tracking at Carrot pretty recently. And if you're a Carrot member listening to this, you need to go and opt in and put call tracking in place on your site, because every Carrot member gets a free phone number. You get your first phone number free. So for the longest time, Carrot members generating leads to their website, and if they call the phone number on your website, you had no way of tracking that or knowing if they actually came from your website unless they told you. And so put that in place. It's in the ballpark of around half the leads from a care website are typically phone leads. So get call tracking in place. Super cool. But that's my
Let's
tip.
go. That's actually a
Yeah.
really cool tip there. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah. Long time coming, man. We're excited about it. Um, so let's talk about some of the unconventional, creative ways to use data so that investors can close more deals. I was just talking with an investor this last week, and we've got $1,000, $2,000 marketing budget, and this question comes up all the time of like, where do I put my money? Whether it's direct mail or cold calling, like what list do I go after? Where's the best place to put this money? Because they don't want to blow through it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, to me, I love that question. And I like to actually maybe separate that question into two parts. One, where should I start? And then two, what list should I build? Right. So if you don't mind, Brady, are you cool if I share my screen? And I can
Let's
actually
do it,
show
man.
people how they could log into PropStream and do it today.
Yeah,
And if you
let's do
want,
that.
you could even put me on the spot if you'd like. So, all right. So
Yeah,
here
pull
we
it up.
go.
And anybody listening to the audio version, feel free to check this out on YouTube. And Burton will do his darndest to talk through what he's seeing on the screen. But if you want to watch the video, just check it out on YouTube. You can walk through it there.
Absolutely. And for those that are listening, I'm going to, again, do my best to describe step by step for you. So
Sure.
I'm in PropStream. We're on the search page. Our search page is designed to pull up an address or to pull up a market and then build a list, right? So the first question that I commonly get, and this is for someone new, or even a seasoned investor that might be branching into a new market. But they always ask me, Burton, how can I use PropStream to identify a hot market? So let me show you. Brady, if you'd like, would you mind giving me a random city in the US?
Let's see. Maybe Boise, Idaho. I don't hear that come up a
Boise,
lot.
Idaho. So the first thing we're going to do in PropStream is go to the search page and we're going to search Boise, Idaho. What that's going to do is going to show you all the records we've collected in that market. We're seeing over 100,000 records in this case. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into the filter menu. And the first thing I want you to do, and again, you could do this in any market. So search the city. And the first thing I want you to think about is this philosophy called follow the money. You guys have heard it all the time. And that's what we're going to actually do in PropStream. So here's how we do it. We are searching Boise, Idaho. We're going in the filter menu, and we have a category called cash buyers. These are all non-owner occupied cash transactions. So these are essentially investors, not people buying in cash and living in that property. These are people buying a second, a third, or fourth home in cash. Now, because we have a lot of data, we don't want just any cash buyer. Let's reduce that cash buyer record to a specific buyer. So let's say you're into residential multifamily, residential single family. We do have that filter in our property details. So for this example, I'm just selecting residential single family. So as of right now, here are the three filters I've added: cash buyers, single family, residential. And to make it a little bit more aggressive of the cash buyers list, I don't want just any cash buyer. I don't want someone who bought a property in cash 20 years ago. What I want are very recent cash transactions. So last sell date is a filter in our owner information section. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back 3 months from today. So it's September. We're going to go back to, let's say, June 1st. So what I'm asking PropStream is go through the cash transactions, residential single family, start 90 days, right? So start 90 days ago, June 1st. And that's all I want to see, who has bought a property in cash single family in the last 90 days. A little additional tip. If you're looking for an aggressive buyer, I would use also our numbers of property owned filter. So in this example, I don't want just any cash buyer in the last 90 days. I also want this cash buyer to have a minimum of 5 properties or more. Little tip as to why. I love the idea of presenting your contract to someone who does both rental properties and buys cash, because then they're going to look at your contract with 2 different lenses: a fix and flip lens or a rental portfolio lens. Again, there's multiple different buyers. So if you're just presenting your contract to a fix and flipper, then they're only going to look at your contract in that lens, and they may not see the long-term value. So what I'm doing here is I'm not just looking for any cash buyer. I'm looking for a cash buyer who also has a portfolio. So let's recap our filter. We went to boys, cash buyer, residential single family, last 90 days, and make sure these guys have a minimum of 5 properties more. That has now taken our 100,000 records and identified 99 properties that meet that portfolio. So these are 99 addresses that were bought in Boise in the last 90 days. and these homeowners have a minimum 5 properties or more. Now, what we're going to do next, unfortunately, you guys can't see this if you're listening, but there's this little tab sticking out between the map and the results. I call this the spreadsheet view. If you click on this little tab between the map and the results, it opens up the results and it actually gives you a spreadsheet view. Now,
Nice.
all of the columns that you see on the spreadsheet view can be reorganized. And the column I'm trying to identify right now is our zip code column. If you click on that zip code column, it organizes it in numerical order. And what I want you to do now is, on a blank piece of paper, create a Venn diagram. And on the left circle, I want you to write follow the money. And then I need you to now write down all the zip codes that you see here from highest to lowest, meaning which zip code had the most cash transaction and which zip code had the least at the very bottom. And what you'll discover is the money is flowing to a specific zip code. So in this case, we have 83702. We have about 10 transactions. 83703 only had 6 transactions. 83704 only had 5 transactions. And this is all in the last 90 days. So just off those 3 zip codes I just listed, which zip code has the most traffic of cash buyers? And that's 83702, right? So this is one way to find a hot market. Just follow the buyers who are already invested. They're already doing research. They have properties already. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Now, to double check that work, let's look at our Venn diagram and look at that right bubble. In that right bubble, I want you to write follow the distress records. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear our search and we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to look at the other side of the fence. So the first search was looking for cash transaction. This search, I'm looking for distress records now. So show me all the tax delinquent properties that are residential single family and owned by an individual who's been in their house for maybe, let's say, 10 years or more. Okay. So first search is follow the money. This search, I'm following the distress records. So here are my filters: Boise, Idaho, tax delinquent, residential single family, 10 years of ownership by an individual. It gave me 168 records.
Nice.
I'm going to use that spreadsheet view again between the map and the results. And then I'm going to organize my zip code in numerical order again. And what you're going to see is a correlation. So on that right bubble, I need you to do the same thing again. The most tax delinquent zip code at the top, the least at the very bottom. And what you'll discover is there's an overlap. The same zip code that most buyers are in are the same zip code that most of the distress records are. And in this case, 83702 had 12 results. 83703 only had 10 results. 83704 had, in this case, 18 results. So we could see correlation here and where people are going to be dumping their money. So how do we find a hot market in any market? Well, we don't have to wait for the TikTok video to come out to say, here are the top 10. I kid you not, guys. Every single city has its own hot zip code. You just have to take this approach. So no need to wait. Just search a city, find the zip code with the most cash transactions, find the zip code with the most distressed records, overlap them. And then now that's the zip code you do your lead generation in. 83702. We now go into the filter menu and we start building ourselves some off-market distress homeowners. And so again, to answer your question, Brady, I like to break that up into 2 questions. 1, where do I start? And then 2, we can talk about this next part, which is what do I do now? Now that I know the hot zip code, how do I build a list there?
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, I don't want to cut you off. You're on a roll. What's next? After you know the zip codes.
Let's talk about lead generation. So I think the biggest thing when it comes to lead generation is that there is a traditional way to approach it. And I call this the traditional method. And that's once you pull up the zip code, in this case, 83702, users will typically go into our filter menu. And yes, the first area is our lead list. We have 20 different categories, from pre-foreclosures to deceased owners, tired landlords, flippers, liens, you name it, right? So normally, the first behavior is to start off this list. So most of our users will pull up that zip code, select our 2,800 tired landlords, and then start working off that list. So in this case, I need residential single family tired landlords. We have AI data, which we could talk about in a few moments. But most of our users prefer off market properties. So they'll go into our MLS filters and make sure it's off market or even a failed listing. You could stack if you want. So tired landlord who just failed recently on the market. Again, pre-foreclosure filters, ownership filters. Maybe you're looking for an individual owner who may live out of state. Maybe that's an additional motivation or the reason why they don't want to be a landlord anymore in this area. So this is the normal behavior. Again, it all starts with that list, this list being tired landlord, and then you narrow it down. The reality, though, is that we're not the only provider out there that has this list, right? And this is what I mean by the traditional method. And a lot of us are actually implementing that in our business right now. I would say 9 out of 10 of us that are listening are pulling a list and then working off that list. This is why over the last 13 years working at PropStream, I hear people literally come up to me and they'll ask some common questions like, how fast are you updating your lists or your data? And what other lists do you guys have? And the reason they ask these questions is because I get it. You're trying to get that new record so you could be the first person to reach out to this homeowner, get a contract signed, and right, the rest is history. I hate to break it to you, though. Just because you're the first person to call that record doesn't mean you're going to be the first person to get the deal. I see it all the time where even a day before the auction, the homeowner signs a contract with someone that barely called them the day before the auction, right? So you might have spent the last 6 months marketing to this pre-foreclosure just for someone who called them a week before the auction closes the deal. There goes thousands of money down the drain, right? Marketing, your marketing money. You spent 6 months marketing to a pre-foreclosure list and someone who just picked up the phone 5 minutes ago got the deal.
It's real.
Pretty crazy, right? It's a reality. And this is why I see people do this, what I call the hamster wheel, where they go from one product to the next product to the next product to the next product because they're just trying to get that first record. But the reality is your time frame does not align with the homeowner's time frame. Okay, so understand that. So there is this method of pulling from a list. I call it the traditional method, and it will work. The problem I see, though, is it's a very challenging concept because you have 9 out of 10 investors out there that are doing the same thing, right? And then you throw in realtors and lenders and everybody else in the mix that are pulling the same leads. These homeowners are probably getting 100 phone calls a day, okay? So my advice, if you're going to take this approach, have a lot of money, or you know what beats money? Creativity. Be creative. Here's advice I would give people. I think this was a really cool trick I saw some investor do out in North Carolina. Very competitive investor market. She wanted to focus on pre-foreclosures. That's what she specialized in. She was tired of dumping lots of money into postcards and emails and cold calling. So creativity. She wrote handwritten letters with, I think, purple envelopes. She sprayed them with perfume. She didn't spend a lot of money, just personal time. But that creativity landed her, I believe, 7 contracts that month.
Holy smokes. How big was the list?
I think she only had about like 150 homeowners in that given market that she had. I think literally she just pulled every pre-foreclosure in that zip code, which was probably about 100 to 150 records. But I think it's the approach. These 150 pre-foreclosures in that zip code were getting the same yellow postcards or, hey, let us help you fix your credit report, a repair or all that stuff. But her approaches, and if you got to think about it, right? We're working 9 to 5. We get home and there's lots of mail we have to go through. What's the mail that's going to stand out? Well, purple envelope and it smells good. Trust me, it's going to stand out. So if you're ever going to go after a list, understand there's inherited challenges, in this case, competition. And the only way to beat that is tons of money. That's what these hedge funds do, or creativity. So I'm going to leave that with you.
I also love that because I think some people are going to write that off and be like, oh, that's not necessary. That's a little above and beyond. I can just hammer these lists. But what we're seeing right now with AI and automation taking everything over is that the people who are doing well are taking that extra step to prove that they are irrefutably human. That like, hey, I do know this property. I do know what's going on. I am personally reaching out to you because everything's just so automated nowadays and everybody is questioning, is this legit? Did a human even write this? Does anyone put any thought into this? Or is this just something that popped up on my screen from some automation or in my mail from some automation?
Brady, I think you bring a very valid thought that people need to think about, or situation people need to think about. You know, I mean, as a homeowner, I would rather talk to a human being than an AI about selling my property, especially if I'm
Mhm.
going through a financial crisis,
Yeah.
right? A death in the family, a divorce, a bankruptcy. I'm about to lose my home up for auction in 10 days. The last thing I want to do is talk to an AI. So,
Mhm.
one thing to consider is that, and this is just my opinion, where there's still emotion involved, I don't think AI can ever take over. But that's, again, my personal opinion,
Yeah.
not the company. I'll leave that with you guys. So,
Yeah.
with that said, again, one of the challenges is that it all derives off a list, right? So, what I just showed a few moments ago, tired landlord, single family, off market, owned by individuals, this is a very common list. Again, while it would work, there are inherent challenges to it. So, I've proposed a challenge to everybody that's listening. What I'd like you guys to do is understand that not everyone's going to be on a list, right? While we have 20 different categories you choose from, no one just wakes up and they're in pre foreclosure. Like, life happens first, and then a pre foreclosure will occur after those life decisions that you've made or didn't make. So,
Mhm.
one of the things we teach here at PropStream is to look at our data in a different light. And that light is, why don't you create a situation instead with it? So let me give you a few examples. While I could go after all the pre foreclosures and bankruptcies, um, tax liens in this market, here's another avenue I can take. How about we just go in the market, look for all the residential single family properties like I'm doing now that are currently off market, of course. That's the preferred category I want. However, they're owned by individuals for about a minimum 5 years or more. But rather than going after pre foreclosure, I'm going to try to find someone who might be heading in that direction. And here's one filter I would recommend. How about we look for all the mortgages, because we have a mortgage recording date here, that were created before a certain date. So I need all the mortgages. It's 2025 now. So I need all the mortgages that were created before September 2021. So exactly 4 years or older. And not just any mortgage that's 4 years or older. How about a mortgage that's 4 years or older and it has an adjustable rate interest type? That's a filter
Mm.
that we have. So while you're going after pre foreclosures, I'm looking at 61 addresses right here that have a 4 year old adjustable rate mortgage. What does that mean? That means they're either prime already because the 5th year mark has hit, or next year they're going to prime. That rate's going to change, monthly payments are going to change, and that monthly payment change might be the trigger that causes that pre foreclosure, the bankruptcy, even a divorce. Heck, you
Mm.
might even have the two homeowners fighting about who's going to cover the new payments or the difference.
Yeah.
So, do I wait for them to show up on those categories, or do I do what I just did now? I didn't even pick a category. I just went into PropStream's mass amount of filters and said, hey, look, well, everyone's going after pre foreclosures and bankruptcies in this zip code. Go to 83702, that hot zip code we identified earlier, but look for 4 year old adjustable rate mortgages because I'd like to start planting my seed today. Get them familiar with my brand, get them familiar with my voice, familiar with my marketing, because in 12 months, when it primes and they're now in financial distress, they're already resonated with my message. And that
Mm.
message is, let me help you with that high rate. Let me help you with that pre
Yeah.
foreclosure.
Those are the postcards
That's
that someone saves and that's sticky in their head. They're like, "Oh yeah, I got that piece of mail." Yeah.
and that's building situation. And so one, again, situation here that I'm trying to share with you guys is look for those adjustable rates that are about to prime. Here's another one, Brady.
That's
Unless
awesome.
you have
Yeah.
questions on this, I'd
No, my
like to
next
share.
question was going to be like, give me another creative situation. So
Yeah, no, here's another one. And this is something you, myself, everybody in the industry has heard over the last 24 months. And that's nobody wants to sell. And the reason nobody
Mm.
wants to sell is because every person I'm talking to has a low interest rate. You have the Feds
Mhm.
hovering at a 6% right now. And a lot of these homeowners probably bought their property during 2020, 2019, when rates were very low. So you might be coming across someone right now with a lot of equity, 2-3% interest rate, and you're trying to get them to sell to move into something at a 5%, 6% interest rate. Yes, not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm a firm believer there's always two sides of the fence, right? Nobody's on one side. There's always two sides of the fence. And so what I'm going to do in this particular search is I'm not just going to focus on everybody with a low rate. I'm going to focus on everybody with a high rate. So go to 83702, look for all the residential single family owners in this market that are currently off market. make sure they're just an individual like you and me who has lived in their property for a minimum 5 years, 10 years, whatever your favorite number is. But in our mortgage section, there's an interest rate filter. So if the federal rates are at 6%, well, who in this market is at an 8% or higher? Why? Because as a real estate professional, it's your duty to educate these 23 addresses on how you can save them monthly. Because what you know, they don't know. You're the real estate professional. These are just people living their life. They might even have 2 jobs and they don't have time to be focusing on what the federal rates are. That's where you come in. You send your postcard or you have your website ready that says, hey, are you aware of the federal rates being at 6%? If you are and you're interested in selling, let me run a comp for you. And you just got yourself a new potential lead. So stop focusing on low rates. I get it. They don't want to sell unless they're going through a very, very challenging situation, which could happen. But you also have this other side of the fence, the people that don't know where the federal rates are at. And again, it's your job as a real estate professional to educate, and you might find a lead within that.
I love that perspective. Yeah. It's your duty, responsibility to educate and inform people. Yeah. That's good,
Absolutely.
man. Go ahead.
I got more. I could keep going. It's up to you. I don't want to take over the show.
hit me another one. We got some time. Hit me. What's another one?
This one's near and dear to me because this is the reason my father sold our house back in, I believe it was 98. So one thing that people don't understand is that there's life happening within the property itself. And so I'm going to go into this market. Let me clear my search really quick. So we're in 83702. Once again, I'm going to go into the search filter, and the search I'm going to do is exactly why my dad sold our house. And that is, we had a residential single family property. It was off market. My dad hadn't not listed or was even thinking about listing the property anytime soon. We had lived in that property, so it was owner occupied, and we had, I believe, lived in it for roughly about 10 years at that time. And it was individually owned, right? It was under my father and mother's name. So it was a residential single family property, off market, individually owned for 10 years, owner occupied the property. But the reason my father sold wasn't because of any of these 20 categories that we have. The sole reason my father sold this property is this very one filter I'm about to show you. It was a 3-bedroom property. It was my mom and dad in one room, my brother and me in the other rooms. But the reason we sold it is we were fighting over that one bathroom every single morning. So who in this zip code 83702 has been sharing one bathroom with their kids for the last 10 years? 66 addresses. And let's understand why they bought it 10 years ago, one bathroom. I can tell you why my dad bought our property, one bathroom. You know, when he bought the property, I was 2 years old. My brother was 4 years old. A 2 and a 4-year-old don't need their own bathroom. So it made sense at the time, maybe financially for him, or maybe physically, right? But kids don't need their own bathroom. Plus, maybe we don't need to clean the second bathroom, right? But as time moved on, and this is why I used that 10-year ownership mark. Well, those 2 4-year-olds are not 2 4-year mark. 10 years have gone by. That 2 and 4-year-old, well, that's a 12 and 14-year-old now. And you're dealing with one bathroom. 2 teenagers are fighting over hot water. That's exactly why my dad sold the property. I remember he even at one point went to Sears to look for water heaters, thinking that was going to be the temporary fix. And then the guy was like, yeah, it's not going to work out. You better off getting a second bathroom. And lo and behold, that was the reason my father sold. And we moved into our first single family property, which was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom property. And I was happy because we got our own bathroom. I still fought with my brother from certain times, but we got our own bathroom, right? My parents got to live their own thing. They had their own master bathroom. We had a backyard. We had a front yard. So life was grand. But this is what I'm talking about. It's not so black and white anymore. There's so many situations out there, and tons of them are not even on a list that most of these providers, including us, collect. Sometimes you just have to create it yourself. And here's a perfect example. 66 addresses sharing one bathroom with their family for the last 10 years.
That's good, man. And that's a unique list. So my follow-up question to all these scenarios, man, is like, what do you see investors doing to come up with these ideas, with these creative uses? Like, I'd imagine going into ChatGPT with something like, hey, give me this situation. Somebody might want to sell their house. Like, obviously that's a very lazy, half-baked prompt, but I'd imagine you wouldn't get great results like this. And I'm sure you could just talk to, like, the longer you talk with sellers, the more you get familiar with their stories, ideas are going to pop into your head. But I don't know, where are you getting these ideas?
No, you nailed it right there on the very head. That very last statement is just keep your ears open when you're listening to these homeowners. If you're at a family party and one of your relatives says, "Man, I'm having problems with my basement. It's leaking." Ask them what year is their property, and then you should look at every property in that block that's built the same year because it's probably the same contractor,
Mm,
and they're probably going through leaks as well, right? So while you want to ask your cousin, "Hey, do you want to sell?" You should also be asking all the neighbors around her property if they want to sell as well. So to me, it's just everyone has a level of creativity and imagination. You just got to be a kid again and tap back into it. And that's
yeah.
all it is. Remember, this is a business where we're dealing with people's lives, people's situations.
Hmm.
And that to me is all data. Data is just situations. Now, some of these situations are obvious pre foreclosures, bankruptcies, divorces, right? But some of them aren't so obvious and at the surface, like the ones with high interest rates, 4 year old adjustable rate mortgages, people sharing one bathroom, or who just
Hmm.
inherited a property and they live in a different state, or who's a senior owner with 15 properties because they may not have kids, or maybe it's time to consolidate for that retirement plan that they're dreaming of.
Yeah.
That's what I want you guys to start thinking of. So if there's anything that I would like for you guys to take away from this conversation that me and Raider have, it's just that like you should start having some exercises, whether it's for you solo or at your office, have everyone start thinking of situations that homeowners are going through. And then look at our filters and ask yourself, can I build that situation in PropStream's filters? And if the answer is yes, then that's your next lead.
I love
So
that. So it's
while
staying
you're
open,
doing the
but it's,
traditional method, do the
yeah.
building situation method as well. Sorry, Braid, for cutting you off.
No, you're good, man. I was just saying it is. I was thinking maybe it's as simple as just staying open and talking to your sellers, but really it's going 2 to 3 levels deeper. Like you said, it's not just, okay, what's going wrong with the house? And that's our filter because you can't filter that. It's like, okay, let me find the commonalities and the trends. Let me go walk the block in this neighborhood, talk to people. I love that, man.
Absolutely.
I got a question. Have you seen anything working really well for people in rural markets?
I think the challenge with the rural markets is, again, you're always going to find someone who's going to go through a situation. And so I think the hardest part with rural markets is the dispositioning part of rural markets. So while you may get a contract, there are buyers willing to purchase in those areas. My advice when it goes to rural markets is probably start with the follow the money method first. So search that city, see if there are any cash transactions in the last quarter, maybe the last 6 months. See what cash transactions they are. Are they buying office spaces? Are they buying residential? Are they buying vacant land? That kind of tells a story. So if you get, again, 100 results in a rural area in the last 6 months and most of them are vacant land, they're probably developing. And so you're better off maybe trying to find a vacant land contract in that area or distressed homeowner. Somebody wants to sell their vacant land. Not to say you can't sell a single family property, but again, to me, I look at selling and buying like a game, right? When you get a single family property under contract, you don't market that property to someone who's buying office spaces. You market that property to a buyer who's buying single family properties. And so in rural markets, while you can find a seller first, the challenge is there a buyer that matches up to that? So again, my this is just my advice. Everyone has their own opinion to it, right? I would say in very rural markets, I'd probably just search if there are buyers to begin with, because if there aren't any transactions in the last few months, you might struggle letting that contract go unless there's an out of state or out of county buyer, which again requires marketing and a little bit of additional time to find out who may be interested in that market. And I'm sure there's platforms or websites you can market your contract to, but that's the problem is, can I find someone outside of this area interested in
Right.
buying?
I think that's good advice. We had talked about AI a little bit. What any features of PropStream that you're super excited about? Any ways you guys are using AI?
Yeah, that's just a good question. AI has definitely hit the industry, and I think the way it's being used is use AI for the product or use AI for marketing. And we talked about a few moments ago how many companies out there are using it for like postcards and text messaging and even dialing out to a homeowner and having these conversations. And we heard my opinion on that whole
Yeah.
thing. What we've
I have an
done,
opinion there, and I feel like it's important to mention because we recently rolled out autonomous lead manager for texts and emails within Carrot CRM, and I want people to understand that like That should be your backup option for while you're sleeping or while you can't get to a leads. Don't go AI first, but use it as a safety net to keep deals from slipping through the cracks. That's
Ooh,
my
I
thoughts on that.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah,
supplement what you're already doing, not replace. I
exactly.
love that.
Yeah.
So what we've done is obviously we have a lot of data. We looked at AI technology, and so what we did is we decided let's start internally first. Let's have that AI look at our data and see what we can do with that data.
Mhm.
So the first thing that we did, and we've coined it PropStream intelligence. That first thing that we did was our property condition grading system. So one of the data sets that PropStream collects is our MLS data. And so when we collect MLS data, not only are we getting the sold price, the status, active, sold, failed, is it a rental? Is it for sale? Agent's name, brokerage name, phone numbers, and whatnot. But we also get the MLS photos. And this is why when you click on a property that's on our MLS, a failed listing, you're typically going to see the photos with it. So we have 3 photos here. Now, what our AI is doing in this particular address is it took these 3 photos that were uploaded and it's been instructed to give it a grading system. So right now, these 3 photos are only showing the exterior of the property. So our AI recognizes that and it's only able to give you an exterior grade. It says here, this property, exterior is average based on what we're seeing. Interior, not available. Kitchen, not available. Bathroom, not available. So the idea is rather than you going through 3 photos or 300 photos or 30 photos, the AI is uplifting that work for you.
Yeah.
Now you're probably wondering, well, that's cool, right? It's going through the photos. I could have done that.
Yeah.
Well, what if I told you that we gave you the filtering mechanism for it now? So
Mm.
rather than going through 1,700 MLS listings that we have here in Boise, Idaho, just to find a property that's in good condition, there's a filter menu in our filter for that. So now I could say, hey, go to Boise, find me a failed listing, someone who tried to sell with an agent, couldn't do it. But I don't want just any failed listing. Go through all the photos, and I only want the ones that are in good condition or better. And go through all the photos, it narrowed it down to 247 properties that are in great condition or better. And when we click on these properties, we can see the grading system and we can confirm that by looking at the 44 photos in this particular property's example.
That's
Now,
awesome.
let's
Yeah.
add another layer to it. Let's say I'm doing creative seller financing. There's one out there called Subject To, right? In the past, I would build a failed listing list, right? But one of the conversation pieces I had to have is, hey, what's the condition of your property, Mr. Homeowner? Because that's going to determine whether I need to put money into it, bring it up to condition, and then rent it out, do the Subject To strategy. Well, not with this filter. Show me all the failed listing, which is a hot topic for Subject Tos that are in great condition. And then the last piece is just make sure it has an assumable loan. So go through these 247, make sure it has a conventional FHA or VA, and maybe it's under 5% as well. That way we can assume that loan. And as you can see, we are down to 107 properties. I don't have to ask these homeowners the condition of their property. AI has done that for me.
Dude, that's
That's
awesome.
that's our
So,
property condition grading system and how it can be used.
yeah, that's such a time saver. I mean, when you're researching and filtering through properties, but also just when you're getting on the phone, you're going out with more intel. That's
I
really
love
cool.
that. I love that you said that. And to me, I look at it as we gave you the ability to now partition your leads, where in the past it was all together. Now you can create 2 searches. One search, Subject Tos, right? So assumable loans in great condition that failed. That's one list. I don't have to ask these homeowners the condition of their property, right? We go straight into pitching the creative seller financing strategy. And then the opposite, I can build that list first and then do another list. This time, show me all the properties that are in average or worse condition with an assumable loan. And these are my 48 addresses where I talk to the owner. I have to let them know that I have to bring in money to upkeep their property or get it up to speed. And then we can do the Subject To strategy. So rather than putting these 48 with the other 100 and then taking a stab on whose property is good or not, again, that's the questioning, right?
Hmm.
We just removed that one question. We've created 2 lists, Subject Tos that don't need repair, Subject Tos that are going to need repair. So go from
Yeah,
there.
I love that, man. That is awesome. Well, shoot, we're pretty close to time, but we could talk this stuff all day. I mean, there's a million ways
Oh
to use
yeah,
PropStream,
Brader.
but
I'm a
yeah,
data nerd. I could be here for hours talking about all the stuff I know about bending data and manipulating it. So thanks for having me, at least for
yeah.
this long.
Absolutely, man. And I'm sure do you guys have a podcast, or you're at least active on YouTube if people want to follow up and like nerd out even more?
Oh, absolutely. Tons of YouTube videos. We do daily live webinars Monday through Friday. For realtors, we have Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time lunch and listings. We have the real estate or the PropStream Academy, which is a free online course. So even if you don't have PropStream and you just want to learn how PropStream kind of blends in with all these different real estate professions, the Academy is a great source. And then you can just find me on social media. You just want to talk data on a personal basis, shoot me a message.
Yeah.
And but I warn you, you might just get an encyclopedia response from me. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
DM at your own risk, ladies and gentlemen.
That's awesome, man. Last thing I want to ask you, well, two more things, but one, is there anything you see working really well for lead gen right now? I know might be a lame, like broad general question, but anything you see standing out, you know?
Honestly, I think people with all the new technology that's come into place and all the conversations I've had this year at events, um, the personal thing needs to be kept, right? So
Mm,
whether you're using new technology or not, just make sure that it's still personable. Make sure that
yeah.
if you are using AI, it understands your mannerisms, your nuances. And so while you're sleeping and it's having conversations, while you're in bed, it still sounds like you. It still sounds that way. If the AI does get you a warm lead and then you call the owner the next morning, the owner's not caught off guard, right? They still feel that it's
Mm,
kind of within the same element. So I would say just make sure you don't lose that part, and
that
that
personal
is
touch.
keeping it personal. Yes.
That's cool. Well, we're seeing the same thing on the SEO side, man. It's like the people that are winning and ranking are the ones that can, that have a legitimate local brand, that have personality, that have a unique selling proposition, that stand out from other people in their market, and that have what Google calls EEAT, it's experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And if you can prove
Oh,
those things in your website and say, hey, I've been here, I've done this, it's not just theory, has more context to it, those people are winning and
yes.
ranking. And so, yeah, I love that, man. Lines up with what we're seeing for sure. Um, well, I can't let you go without doing a quick little fire round. I did not prep you for this, but I got 4 questions for you that I take every guest through.
So let's
Um,
go.
I'll put 2 minutes on my imaginary clock. Give me a quick bullet point answers. First one, Burton. What's the best piece of marketing advice, strategy, or tactic that you would give someone?
Um, Catch them off guard. And so when you're
Mm,
doing a cold call, maybe a quick little joke, keep it PC. If you're writing letters, again, throw that left ball at them, right? That curve ball, maybe handwritten, maybe spray perfume. I gave you guys some advice. So catch them off guard.
I love that you said perfume, not cologne. I don't think a cologne would have the same effect.
No, and I say that only for her situation because we
Yeah.
discovered 90% of those pre foreclosures were properties that were owned by men, so it kind of made
Yeah.
sense.
That's funny. Okay. What's a number 2 out of 4? What's a book that changed your life? And in a few words, what was the problem it solved for you?
God, I read so many books, but I would say The Art of Persuasion by
Mm,
Bob Burb, and it's just again how to take command of conversation, and
yeah.
you can deliver the message that you want to deliver in many different ways. And I think just understanding that the way you deliver message is not the way other people receive that message. And so the art of persuasion is very, very important because again, you can get your point across even with someone who completely disagrees. It's just a matter of how do you deliver that.
Bob Berg was Go Giver, right?
Yes, I do believe that was him as well. That was the same
Okay.
author.
I need to check that out because Go Giver is one of my favorite books. I own 2 copies. Trevor got me into it when I was first hired, and I own 2 copies so I can always like loan one out. It's the Go Giver. The funny thing is, Trevor had Bob Berg on this podcast like, shoot, years ago, like less than episode 50, and we're over 600 episodes in right now.
What?
Yeah, that's
Well,
crazy. I'm
shout
like,
outs,
Bob
Bob.
Berg.
Your book definitely changed the trajectory of my path a little bit and
That's
made me
cool.
start thinking that there's actually, I'll be honest with you, that book made me enjoy having conversation with people, especially
Mm,
conversation with people that have a different perspective of life than I do.
yeah.
Because to me, the more I'm exposed to things I'm not familiar with, the more I can learn, and
Yeah.
vice versa. I also need to expose to them why I believe the things I believe. So, really great book.
That's good. I'm writing that down. Help you be more open minded. I like that. Okay, number three. What advice would you give to younger Burton? Don't
Ooh,
don't fight with your brother over the bathroom.
wake up earlier, get there first. Younger me, no, I wouldn't. I'm a firm believer you just don't mess with the past. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now, Brady. I wouldn't be here sharing what I know with everybody. I'm a firm believer that every one of us have to go through these experiences, whether we like it or not. I'm a firm believer that you need to hit rock bottom. That way, you can feel those feelings and create defense mechanisms so you never experience them again. That's not to say that there isn't going to be another rock bottom. There always is going to be another rock bottom. But I'm a firm believer if you're not thrown in the water, you're never going to learn how to swim. And so I wouldn't change a beat. If anything, I would just be that weird dude in the background, just taking a look and smiling at my young self making those mistakes and learning and picking himself up.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that answer. I appreciate that honesty so much. You are the first person to answer that and not answer it at the same time. I
Oh,
love that.
okay.
I love that answer because,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Like, don't change
I
a
watched
thing.
too much Back to the Future. Maybe that's part of the reason why you just, unless I have an almanac, maybe I might touch things, but yeah,
It's
but no, we're
yeah,
not.
it's wasted thought. It's wasted energies dwelling on the past. That's good.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, last one. Is there any impact you're making outside of real estate that lights you up, or anything fun you're doing that you want to talk about, share with people?
Um, I think, as a parent of a preteen, he's getting into his teenage year. I think that's in itself its own journey.
Hmm.
With the way that
Yeah.
the world is evolving at a rapid pace with technology, with just the different beliefs out there, which is all great. There's no right or wrong in my opinion, unless you're harming people. So don't do that. But I think that's a journey and a challenge that I'm faced with. And so for me, while I'm trying to change the world, I think I'm doing that with this microphone here at PropStream that I have and sharing people this way of looking at data. Because I believe what I'm doing at PropStream is helping people not just better their lives, but remember what you guys are doing with what I just taught you a few moments ago is just finding more people to help, right? There are people
Yeah.
out there sharing one bathroom and they want to move into a bigger place. They just don't know where to begin. And that's where you guys come into play. So I
Yeah.
think that part I'm pretty happy with. I am delivering a charitable thing uh, with my
Oh
work
yeah.
here at PropStream. But then as a father, I need to also instill that in my child. I need to
Yeah.
let him know that your voice is very strong and you have the ability to change the world, right? There's no such thing as a small voice. I think every voice has an ability to make a large impact. You just got to believe in yourself. And if you have children, you got to make sure that they also believe in themselves as well. And I think that's the journey I'm in right now.
That's critical, man. I appreciate you sharing. How old is your boy?
He's 12, so I always say 12 going on 18 because yeah,
Yeah.
that the middle school year is whew. If you're a parent going through that, you know exactly. You could probably hear the pain in my voice right now, but good luck, guys.
I
we're
feel you.
we're in the same boat together, everyone.
So I have a 2-year-old boy and an 11-year-old boy, and so that hits home. And I think what's been top of mind for me recently, and I know there's a lot of dads who listen to this podcast, so hopefully it's helpful, is um, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know what the years coming up look like. You don't know if it's getting harder, easier, or how it ebbs and flows. But the one thing that's remained true is like I always tend to underestimate how much our kids need us and how they need us, like the nuances of how they need us to pour into them. I think the lesson for me the last couple of years has been that being reactive or simply showing up in some ways is not enough for them. And it's a weird balance, right? Because your kids, like, you could give them unlimited time and it will never be enough. They always want more time with their dad and mom, you know? Um,
Yeah,
but just that idea of like, are we being super intentional with them, or are we just checking the box saying, "Yeah, I think I've done my part," especially in these like critical transformative years? It's
very,
wild.
very right. Well, I will say this one last piece of advice for any
Yeah,
parent out there, especially for those that are dealing with the same age group that I'm dealing with. These kids think they're always right, and that's okay. Again, I was there. You guys were
yeah.
there. One thing that I've learned, I've started doing with my kid, and I just found great with it, is that I ask him every day, what are his losses? Like, what losses, what L's did you take today?
Mm,
Because we can always talk about all of our wins, but it's like, well, what challenged you today? What was something that you weren't pleased with, right? What losses did you take today? And then once he talks about that, we then try to come up with, well, how can we alter that? How can we make it into a win, right? And so one thing that as a parent, I think that we need to understand, and I'm guilty of this, is that I need to train my son. I'm talking out loud here. I need to train my son to be comfortable failing. I was never comfortable failing. I always had really high metrics for myself. And that also prevented me from starting new things. And so sometimes you're never going to be perfect. And I'm a huge video game. I don't know if you guys can see some of the stuff in the background here. But one of the things I teach my son is no matter what you do in life, just like a video game, you're always going to start at 0%. And just like any video game, you have to grind. And at the later levels, after years of experience, years of hard work, you're now the guy. You're now the main character. So if you expect to do anything new and you're at 100 level 100, you're insane. That's never going to work out. So again, teach your kids how to fail.
Yeah.
Let them know, especially in this gaming world that all of our kids are playing. I try to correlate gaming analogies with the conversation that I have with them.
Yeah, I love that. Good expectation setting. That's super humbling. And spoken like a true investor, you had hard metrics for yourself.
I think we all
That's
do.
good, man.
Sometimes we just got to lighten up a little bit. That's okay.
That's cool, man. Well, I appreciate the conversation. Super valuable, the whole thing, man. So thanks for hopping on. Anybody listening? Yeah, absolutely, man. That's always good catching up. If you're not familiar with PropStream, heck, you already are. Go check them out on YouTube. They do a lot of really good content. You can nerd out for days. But if you enjoyed this, share it with a friend. Feel free to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email, brady@carrot.com. Like Burton said, I'd love to chat as well. So we will see you next time, guys.